A recent survey by HR.com shows that 94% of employers conduct some form of employment background screening. And while this can be very advantageous and is often recommended, there can be some potential disadvantages to running certain types of checks, including credit checks and drug tests. I'm Skye, a staff writer with business.com, and today I'm joined by Dettman. He's the CEO of Avenica, an education to work platform that focuses on identifying and unleashing potential for early career talent, to talk about what those potential disadvantages might be and what alternatives you can seek instead. Hi, Scott. Thanks so much for being here today to talk about background checks, more specifically drug tests and credit checks. Why do companies conduct drug tests and credit checks on potential job applicants?
Well, I think there's probably a variety of reasons, but I think the majority of the reason is linked to the expectation that this will give employers some sort of understanding or a deeper understanding of the potential to do the job, right? I think ultimately they're using that information as part of a larger picture that they're painting around the candidate and their potential to have an impact in the organization.
So why might job candidates be leery of applying for companies that require these type of checks?
We're at a point in time right now where there are a lot of open jobs and not a ton of candidates. So I think candidates are being a bit more selective, but also as we're looking at the market and at Avenica, when we're working with candidates on a daily basis, one of the things that we hear from them is there's a lot of interest in the type of company that they're going to and the level of trust and respect that company exhibits towards their employees. And I think a lot of candidates look at this as it's an overreach. It's a violation of privacy. It's personal and it's not connected to the work that they do. And so we've had some pretty strong rejections of these practices and candidates walking away from offers because of it.
That's interesting. So you had mentioned candidates rejecting offers. Are there any type of other potential disadvantages for companies that require drug tests and credit checks?
The reason why companies do this is I think it has a basis, but I don't think it makes a ton of sense, to be honest. I think there's there's a lot of information that is in a credit check that could be beneficial, if you're getting a mortgage or trying to buy a car, but linking that to someone's ability to perform on the job just doesn't. It's not a straight line connection. It's a little bit of a disconnect, and frankly, a lot of the times when you look at something even like what we've gone through with COVID, right? There are a lot of people that lost jobs, a lot of economic uncertainty, even so much so that there was a moratorium put on landlords evicting tenants, but people couldn't be evicted, but they could still have their late payments, reported to a credit bureau, which could have destroyed their credit, right? So, inhibiting someone's ability to get a job because they've had difficulty paying bills in the past or something just seems kind of illogical.
So in your line of work, I know that you work with people looking for jobs and things of that nature. So are there any other potentially outdated hiring practices that you see employers still use today?
When we think about the hiring process, so much of the way that we have traditionally done this just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So you think about resumes and resumes being sort of the first line, trying to broadcast whether or not someone has the ability to do a job. I think individually, everyone would agree that resumes are not an effective characterization of potential, but employers still use them. And then they're using that resume in connection with a job description, which is usually pretty poorly written and usually has way more skills than are actually required to do the job and doesn't really tell you about the core kind of intangibles that go into being successful. So, at Avenica, we really focus on trying to get a holistic picture of the journey the person has been through. We kind of refer to it as their superpowers, but like, what are the things that make this person really unique? And then looking for those kind of unique and common threads through the data we're capturing through intensive interaction with these individuals, and linking that to the same sort of unique quirks and habits and trends that exist within an employer, and really trying to make that connection in a meaningful way. And we're very good at it, and it works really well. And so I think the disconnect comes when people rely on those really kind of outdated practices.
Okay, so before we wrap this up here today, those outdated practices that you had mentioned, in addition to drug tests and credit checks, Are there any alternatives or best practices that employers can turn to instead?
Absolutely. I mean, well, I'm a bit biased, of course, but I'd say, work with a firm like Avenica that can really help you understand the candidates that are out there and really help, paint a picture of who those individuals are. But also, I think there's a cautionary tale here, because when you think about even, in the realm of like drug testing, some of the things that are tested for are in some cases antidepressants, right? Which we just went through a significant period of time where a lot of people were talking about mental health all the time. And it's a very important topic. There's still some stigma around it, but we're basically saying that we're going to prevent economic mobility for people that have reached out and have gotten the care that they needed. And so when you think about the times that we're in, and then all of the different factors, there's the best way to think about this is to spend time getting to know candidates, give them a vehicle to basically get in front of you, virtually or in person. But then also just look to eliminate the obstacles and barriers that just don't make sense anymore.
Awesome. Well, thank you for all of your expert insight today, Scott. That was all that we
Thank
had.
you. Great. Thanks.